Welcome to this topic on conditional and loop statements here. So in this one we are going to talk about that what are the different kind of conditionals and loop statements we can use while preparing the Python programs here. So let's begin that what we are going to cover in this one. So we are going to cover the operators in the Python here. Then we are going to talk about conditional statements, loop statements. So these are something which we are going to talk about in this particular Python over here. So operators in Python. So operators is something which performs the various kind of operations on the operands. So operands are the actual variables or the values on which we are trying to perform some operation. So for example, if you are trying to do like 2 plus 3, which is equivalent to 5. So here 2 and 3 are the operands on which our operation is happening. And plus or additional symbol over here is known as operator here. So there are different kind of operators which is available there. So let's talk about that. First one is the arithmetic. Now in case of arithmetic, we have different kind of operators like plus, minus, division, multiplication, modulo. We have a double star also there. Then we have assignment operators. In there we have like equals to, double equals to, plus equals to, minus equals to, multiply equals to, divide equals to. So all these things are there from the assignment perspective, that how we are performing the assignment and all. Then comparison, greater than, less than, not equal to, all these things. Then logical and or is also available. Bitwise, identity, membership, all these are the different kind of operators which we can use either on the core values or we can use on the various variables. So these, depending on the particular operators which we use, we can perform some desired operations, and that helps us to understand that what exactly we are trying to perform or we are trying to execute over here. So that's the real purpose, that why we require operators while preparing the Python programs over here. So next we have conditional statements. Now conditional statements are used in which we can actually see how to behave depending on a particular condition. So certain steps or certain block of code if you want to execute, but before that you want to have a condition check that this block of code should be executed in a specific condition. Now if that condition is satisfied, then only the conditional block or the block of code will be executed. So on the right hand side you can see here that there is a flow diagram which is available there, in which we have a condition. If a condition is true, then the conditional block of code is getting executed. If the condition is false, then the whole block will be simply skipped. So it's kind of a true and false kind of a situation, where if the situation is true, we are proceeding. If in case the situation is false, if the result is false, we are just coming out of that. So this is the reason why we need to use this particular component over here. Now there are different kind of conditional statements which we can have over here. We have if, else if, and else here. So depending on your requirement and depending on your conditions, you can actually explore that which particular statements, which particular conditional statements you want to proceed, you want to use over here in this one. Now in this particular flow diagram, you can see here that we are basically starting off particular conditions here. So we are saying that if particular x is less than y, where we are using a comparison operator here. So if x is less than y, so if this situation is true, then statement A is executing. If this is something in which we are trying to have multiple if-else statements, because if you are not going to execute only one condition, you have to check further conditions. Like if something is true, then you are executing something. But again, if some statement or some condition is false, in that situation, again, if you want to have a if-else kind of situation where you want to further check that in case this situation or this particular value is false, you want to further check or you want to further validate some other values so that you can take a better decision. So in that case, we have the if-else particular statements over here. But this becomes so much complex. On top of that, you have the indentation also there. So yes, you have to properly work on these loops, because you may get confused that which particular loop is ending at which particular location. So indentation is proper in working with the multiple if-else, because if the indentation is not proper, you may have multiple loops, but again all of them will not work properly and it will cause a lot of problem for you. So this is something which you need to keep in mind while working on these different if-else statements all together in a single particular program. So let's talk about the example over here. So on the left side we have the syntax, and on the right side we have the example here. So on the left side you can see that we have a condition 1, and if it is success, if it is true, then some conditions and some statements are executed onto the system. But if we say that we want to have in the else part again another condition to be checked, that yes, if the condition 1 is not true, again the particular else part will be executed. But again, in the else part we are having an else if to check if the condition 2 is true, then statements will be executed, otherwise we are going with the else part here. So in this one, at the second level, we are not closing it off simple if else statements here. We are further checking another condition over here, that in case the particular false or if the else part is executed, then further we are trying to validate a condition and trying to check the situation, that what exactly is happening over here. So this is how the if else really works, in order to understand that how the overall process, how the different values, conditions and all that stuff is validated. And on the right hand side, let's go ahead with the example here. So we have a value of x as 10 and y value as 12. Now in this one we are checking that if x is less than y, then we are saying that x is less than y. But we are also checking that if the particular x is greater than y, so x is greater than y. And if this situation is not happening, then we are saying that yes, x and y is equal here. Now I can easily remove the second loop and I can say x is greater than y, but this does not work in that same way. So instead of having the assumption that either x can be less than y or it can be greater than y, here we are trying to put up a third logic or third statement where we are checking out, where we are validating that both values should not be equals to each other. So in case the particular value is x is equal to y, the first loop, the else if, both will fail and the third statement will be executed. So this is the exact situation where we feel that if condition 1 is not true, condition 2 is not true, then we are going with the condition 3 here. So this gives us a better relation and a better decision in understanding that what exactly the end result should be there. So in order to have an effective decision, this is the way that how we are proceeding with different statements. Now those was the if, else, and those are just the conditional loops where either a value can be true or value can be false here. But there are certain times where we need to have multiple values, multiple statements executed. So in that case we use a loop statement which allows us to execute a particular statement or a group of statements multiple times. It's just kind of a loop, like where we have a starting and end point here. So it will start it will begin from the first value and it will go till the last value here. So there are different kind of loops here which are available in the Python programming. So we have while, for and nested loop here. So if conditions are something which you have seen that you can have only one or two values, at max you can go for else if and you can have more values there. But if you want to go for kind of a list where you have a list of an items or a values and you want to pick up each and every value one by one, or you want to go into a sequence order, so that is where the for, while, nested, all these statements really help you in that particular way. So for statement is there. For example, you can want to go for a particular array processing, so in that case for loop is used. Similarly, while loop is used in case you want to run certain steps or certain particular tasks you want to run depending on a condition. So there we are using the while loop. And similar, we have the nested loop for having an iteration of a series of values. So these are basically used in case you're not going for a condition check or a boolean parameter. If you want to go for an iterative task, so there we can use these kind of different loops here. Now let's talk about each of these components one by one. So while loops keep an iteration of iterating a statement or a particular block until a certain condition is met. So in this one we basically use an expression or a statement. So if that particular statement is fulfilled, that is the situation where the while loop will stop. So if you want to run, if you want to print some 20, 30, these kind of values all together in a particular loop, so that is where we can easily use this while statement. So let's see the particular flow diagram here. So we will start here, and depending on the while situation or condition, we will see that what really happens. If the condition is true, if for any reason that the condition is not met yet and the condition is still true here, So what will happen that a set of statements or a kind of a block of code is executed, and it will keep on executing. Unless and until the situation or the condition is false, this whole block will keep on executing there. Now once the condition is false and the condition is met, then it will completely come out of the particular loop here, and the while loop will be break down over there. So this is the way that how we can run certain set of commands and statements over the period of time again and again, depending on a particular condition is satisfied or not. So that is the purpose of using this particular syntax here. So here you can see that we are having an example of while loop. So we are making a variable called count over here, and the value is 0. Now we know that we have to use a particular condition here. So we are using a condition that the value of count should be less than 5. Now particular count will start from 0 and it will go for less than 5 over here. Once the value of count is 5, that is the time where the code will break and the while loop will stop. So you can see here that we are also printing the count over here so that we can understand that what is the value processed inside the particular while loop. And then we are also incrementing the value of count, because if we don't do that, our particular while loop will always be stuck there and it will become an infinite loop. So if you want to increase or increment or go to the next value, that is the reason why we are incrementing the value of count with 1, so that we can increment our value of count and that the condition which we are using in while should be satisfied. So here in the output you can see that you are getting the value called 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Once the value of count is 5, then it will again check the statement, and that is where this statement will fail. And once the statement is failed on, it will come out of the loop and it will go with the next statement. And the next statement which was there is the print statement, in which we were using the goodbye over there. And this is the way that how it comes out of the loop and proceeded with the rest of the source code here. So this syntax is something which we can use according to your requirement. You can modify it according to the statements, variables, all these things you can use and make it as according to your particular requirements. Now for loop is something which again is used to execute a block of statement, and it is basically depending on a particular range of a particular value. So in this one we give a list of values, and this for loop will pick up each and every value of those lists and process accordingly. So it will execute the statement once the particular sequence is done. Once the items are processed, it will come out of the loop automatically. So it will go for first value and will go to the end of the particular list over here. So you will use particular range of items or values over here, and for loop will pick up each and every particular item of this particular list, process it, and then come out of this particular loop once the list is processed completely. So let's see an example on this one. So in this one, let's talk about the first example here. We are using a particular syntax here called for. I is something which we are using as a temporary variable, in which each and every value will be picked up and stored temporarily. And we can use this I variable in order to use in the printing and the statements and block code over there. So in this one, we are giving the range from 1 to 5. So for loop will go from 1 to 5 there, and it will print the content. So it processes 1, 2, 3 and 4, and that is where it got stopped there. So this is where you will be able to see that we are printing the I value also, and all those particular statements will be executed one by one till the particular list is over. It comes out of the loop and it stops execution. Now second example also is there, where we are using the particular range in a decreasing order. So we are giving that we need to go with the 5 as an first initial value, and 1 is the ending value, and also we are specifying that yes, you have to decrement the values over there for the execution. Normally for loops goes for the increment order when we are using the range feature, but over here we need to specify that you need to go one step down, or you need to use decrement in order to move with the particular array. So that is the reason why the third parameter we are using called -1, which shows that yes, you have to decrement each and every value 1 over here and then print the particular statements. And that is the reason why we have got the particular statements like welcome to loop for loop 5, welcome to for loop 4 and 3 and 2, and the same order over here. So this is the for loop which will run on a particular range of values, process them one by one and then print it or process it, or whatever the statements you perform or you code, according to that the value will be picked up. So we also have a for else particular concept here. Now when a for loop successfully executes without any break statement or without any kind of error, then the else block attached with the particular for loop also gets executed. But if for loop encounters some break during the iteration, then the else part will not be executed. So this is the reason that why we use this particular statement here. So you have some particular examples over here. So let's see that how it works. Now you have a particular for loop here in which we are going for the range 1 to 5, which means that we will be getting the values from 1 to 4 over here, like the previous example. Now in this case we are saying that if the particular value of I is greater than or equal to 5, then it should perform a break. And we know that if any break statement is executed inside the for loop, then the else part will not execute. But this will not happen on the left side of example over here, because of the simple fact that the I value will not go above 4 over here. So it will not go either to 5 value or more than 5. So that is the reason why that if statement will not be executed and the else part will simply execute there. And that is the reason in the output you will see the else part printed. But on the right hand side it's saying that if the value of I is greater than or equal to 4, which is actually happening because of the fact that 4 value is getting incremented, and in the range between 1 to 5 we are getting the values like 1, 2, 3 and 4. Till 4 we are getting. So definitely that if statement is executing there, and it basically did a break on the for loop there, and that is the reason why we don't see any else part executed in that loop. So if the breaking point or any break statement is executed inside the for loop, that is where the else statement will not be executed. So this is the scenario. If you want to have an execution of else part, then that particular condition, or there should not be any kind of break statement inside the for loop. And if something happening, if a break statement is coming up in the for loop, that is where you can see here that the else part will simply skipped and it will not be executed. So that's it for this particular lesson. I hope you liked it. Thanks.